All right, anyway, now we'll do some reviews, and we will start with Swans. Leaving Meaning is the 15th studio album and the 5th studio album since the 2010 Swans reunion of from the New York noise terrorists. I say that, although I do feel that Swans are slightly mischaracterised by the media, somewhat.
To be honest with you, they're genreless, aren't they? Swans are Swans. Like, it's so different. I mean, I've heard them being referred to as post-rock, which isn't entirely inaccurate. Noise rock, sure. Jazz.
Industrial avant-garde, jazz. Yeah.
It's all right, and it's all wrong.
Yeah.
Is what I would say with regards to Swans.
Yeah.
But an enormously, I mean, quite possibly, we're a relatively experimental podcast as these things go, and Swans are quite possibly one of the most experimental bands we will feature on the show. Do you think that's fair?
I think so, yeah. I think when you look at the breadth of their career... Well, I mean, I was going to ask you about this.
Hello.
Actually, as we kind of kick this review off. Because, as I said, 15 records. This album features, amongst others, many, many collaborators, as Swans usually have many collaborators. Anna von Hauswolf is on this.
Yeah.
Ben Frost is on it as well. But if you can keep up with who is in Swans at this point, then, well done. Because I certainly fucking can't.
There is a touring lineup which has remained constant for a couple of records at least, I believe. But
if you try and sort of get together with and think of everybody that has been in Swans ever.
Well, Wikipedia has tried, as it always does. You know those charts that they have at the bottom? The Swans chart, which says who's been in the band.
I bet it looks like massively unbelievable.
It is an entire screen. So, it depends on the screen you're looking at, but it's massive. It's ridiculous.
I can imagine it is.
It's very amusing.
So what's your relationship with Swans and Renfrew? Because I think not only are they an experimental and difficult band for us to be chatting about, they're one of those bands, I feel, who just the mere mention of their name is intimidating.
Yes. Swans are a band who I have strived to get into probably since the resurgence. I didn't really, since the revival, they really reformed. Reformation, thank you.
Song went up on MySpace when they reformed. Just
really?
Nothing. Suddenly, hello, there's a new Swan song on MySpace. That's how they did it. On MySpace.
Oh, legends. And in fact, it wasn't the first one. It was the Seer, which came out in 2012, I think, where people really started, saying this record is amazing, and like all the things I was reading about it, I thought, oh, that sounds like a bit of me.
Yeah.
And I tried listening to the Seer to give you an idea. Double album, a lot of Swans albums, most of them at this point. Oh, I wouldn't want to go on record as saying that, and we are technically on record, but a lot of them.
You can use the word lengthy.
A lot of Swans. I'm prepared to say a lot of Swans records are double albums, including this one that we're about to talk about. The Seer is 2 hours long. It features songs which are around 30 minutes in length. I think the title track is 32 minutes or something like that. And I tried, and I sort of could see that it was quite unlike anything else, and I could see sort of why people thought it was amazing, but it was like, I see the world that you're creating, Mr. Gira, Michael Gira, the main man behind Swans, but I'm not sure if I want to be inhabit that world, to be totally honest. Then To Be Kind came out 2 years later, another double album, and I remember listening to it in the offices of The Independent, and it gave me a migraine. Honestly, it made me feel sick to my stomach. I remember it so vividly. I remember where I was sat, and it just, because it was streaming on probably NPR or something like that, and I was like, right, I'm gonna give this another go. And I just felt ill listening.
So this is a funny little story. That came out in May 2014, that record.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And I had just started doing the breakfast show on Team Rock Radio. And
don't tell me you played Swans on that show. Can you imagine?
No, because Just a Little Boy was on it. And I was like, well, that's only 11 minutes. Like, I can play that right. And I remember one of the first meetings I had, I was like, do you know what would be really cool? Playing like with the, like new Swans album was out. And everyone sort of went, oh, okay, yeah, cool. All right. And then I was like, so you know who Swans are, right? And they were like, well, no, we don't actually. And I was like, they're like a legendary, but they're like, oh, they're like they're like Megadeth. It's like, no. And then when I got it, they were like, absolutely, you can't play this. Like, and it was like that. At that point, I was like, oh. This isn't going to be quite what I expected it to be, is it? That was like an early indicator of how difficult that year was going to be.
Yeah.
Can I play Swans at 7:00 in the morning? No. Oh.
I'm going to try.
I quit.
I'm going to try and put Swans into my next DJ set. That'll be
You're
a
a fucking
challenge.
lunatic.
So to be honest, Swans are a band who I feel like there's been a few of these like, band who I've admired from afar, and I can see why people love them, but I've never found my way in. And considering that the Seer and To Be Kind in particular, I didn't even bother with the Glowing Man, because after To Be Kind, I mean, even thinking about the cover of To Be Kind makes me feel a bit sick. I was just like, I just can't do it again. And then when I saw there was a Swans album coming out, I mean, I did bring this in, I guess. Well, I mean, I think we both would have anyway.
Yeah.
But I think, considering the sort of show that we are, I think it was vital that we cover it. But I will say this: there was a little bit of like, oh damn, we've got to do that Swans record, just because of how the last one that I listened to made me feel 5 years ago.
Yeah, I can understand all of that.
Yeah,
I mean. So you're saying did you not really try with them until the Reformation?
Not really, no.
Okay,
they pretty much passed me by until the Reformation.
So to give you my perspective and my sort of relationship with Swans, they were a band whose name I'd heard bandied around quite a lot during the kind of mid to late 90s when I started getting into heavier music. And the Neurosis split with Jarbo.
Yeah.
Was a way in. I think probably is a way in for people in my age. Was a way in for quite a lot of us.
Which, by the way, either has just been re-released, or is about to be re-released, and is well worth your time. It's very good.
Yeah, it's really good.
And Jarbo used to be a member of Swans.
Yeah, she used to be a member of Swans. She was a sort of keyboard and vocalist, and she has got an insane voice.
She's brilliant. Yeah, she was. Yeah, she's fantastic.
And has not really been part of this Reformation. Like,
no, although she does guest on one or two.
Yeah,
I think she guests on a song on the Seer, from what I recall. So she's not in the band, but she's guested once or twice.
So that came out, and I was like, I should try this. I should check this out. And I bought. I think so. You got to remember, this is probably like 1999, 2000 era. We're looking at that sort of era, the new metal years is what I'm saying, basically. And I was like, I'm going to go out and buy one of their records, because you hear about how they're the most fucking mentalist band ever. But this was obviously, again, not only was this the new metal years, it was obviously the you have to find this in a CD shop years as well. And in Reading, there's a little shop in Reading, and I found The Great Annihilator, which is their album from 1996, and I bought that. And I have to be perfectly honest with you, I went home and listened to it, and I went, fuck knows. I haven't got a fucking clue. What is this? Yeah. And it just sort of sat there gathering dust. And I kind of forgot about Swans for about 10 years. Just didn't really pay that much attention to the sort of the thought of it. I was just like, nah, don't get it. Don't really understand it. Which is weird, actually, because going back to that record, I know it's not really considered one of their best records, but it's actually I think it's a good record. At this point, I'm like, yeah, I do like that record, and I quite like that period of them as well. But yeah, it was only probably, maybe sort of 7-8 years later, when, as I was talking before, I was downloading on my mate's house, and I used to put everything on this massive iPod, and I heard Cop. Obviously, Cop is this hugely influential record, and is sort of routinely characterized as a heavier than everything record. Like, I think Terrorizer said it was the fourth heavy, like Terrorizer's know their stuff about heavy music. 4th heaviest album all time, as nominated by Terrorizer.
Really?
Every time they put in these, like the loudest bands ever, the heaviest albums ever, the most extreme things ever, blah, 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 blah. Swans, 99% of the time will come up.
Yeah.
Cop, 99% of the time will be the album that gets brought up. Yeah. But for me,
it's nihilistic, isn't it?
It's very nihilistic, yeah. And it's a far cry from what we're about to talk about, I think.
Yeah.
And for me, Swans are kind of like, and Cop is kind of comparable to Scum by Napalm Death. Because I think Scum, whilst I can understand just how influential it is and just how kind of brilliant it was for the time and just what a kind of like, mad shot in the arm that record was, at the same time, it's far from their best.
It's not the record you go to.
No. I think even to go from Enslavement to Obliteration 1 album later, I think is a clear step up, to be honest. But Scum is the record people go, oh my God, when I heard Scum. Yep. People may say that about Calculating Infinity with the Dillinger Escape Plan. They may go, yeah, okay, it's the headfuck record, but it's not actually better than Option Paralysis or Ironworks or whatever.
Yep,
I personally disagree with that, probably because I was there at the time, and I think that's probably, that context will probably have a lot to do with what your favourite record from these very, very extreme bands are.
I agree.
I appreciate Cop, and I can see exactly why it was so influential, and, it's proto fucking everything, isn't it? Proto industrial, like you say, proto noise, proto post metal. You listen to Street Cleaner by Godflesh, and you go, okay,
there we go.
Yeah. But when the Swans 2010 reunion turned up, I think there was a few pieces in the subterraneous section of Metal Hammer and a lot of the reviews probably done by our joint friend Jonathan Seltzer, who is a fucking brilliant writer and an oracle in this type of music, and is a massive fan of Swans. That really,
I would say Dom Lawson as well.
Dom
is a massive Swans fan, and I remember when the Seer came out, seeing. I think one of his metal sandwiches where he was going on about it, but certainly.
Yeah. And I remember reading about My Father Will Guide Me Up to the Rope, Up a Rope to the Sky, and that being a comeback and people being really, really excited about that, and me listening to that record and going, this is very, very different from the 2 eras of Swans from what I heard before.
Yes.
And kind of like, for me personally, that record, The Seer, To Be Kind, which I know you said gave you a massive headache. I kind of don't think Swans have really put a foot wrong since they've reformed in 2010, which is quite a rare thing. I mean, I personally, To Be Kind, I think thus far is probably the best. I really do genuinely like that record, and you're right, it's tough.
I wouldn't want to. I would never. I heard it once.
Yeah,
and
it's tough record.
It put me off so much that I didn't go back to it, but that's not like a review. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going, it is shit.
Yeah.
I'm saying it put me off so much that I just couldn't return to it. And I think Swans are one of those bands that, like, you're not meant to get it instantly, are you?
No.
There might be people who claim, oh yeah, I loved it, Swans from the beginning, but they're one of these bands that you kind of need to ingest over a period of time, I feel. Which
I agree.
Pretentious and wanky, but we're talking about quite a pretentious wanky band.
Yeah.
So,
and the result of that is I find myself not really ever thinking about Swans for longer than about, I don't know, a couple of months, and then I find, like, what I've found with their records is that they're a band I think you have to seek out and go, right, I'm going to get in this and I'm going to like it. You can't just go, oh, hey man, there's a new Swans record out, I think I'll have a little listen to that. Maybe I'll come back to it in a few months, maybe I'll give it a couple of listens. You either go, all right, turn all the lights off, like take all the distractions away, and get yourself right into that headspace where you can listen to it. And then after a while, I mean, to be fair, I do like the Glowing Man, but I probably only listen to it maybe 5 or 6 times ever. Like
Glowman was their previous
record. Yeah, which is from 2016. Mainly because I just was, I mean, what was I doing in 2016? I was getting a full-time job and I was getting married, and it wasn't really the sort of, it wasn't really the time to be listening to a Swans record, to be fair.
Yeah, you're not, it sounds like a weird thing. You kind of have to be in the mood to ingest it, if that makes sense. You have to be in the mood for it. And so I think Swans are one, like, maybe when I don't know what I was doing when To Be Kind came along, but I do feel like that I was in totally the wrong headspace to listen to it, which might have contributed to my
I think
nausea.
maybe for me, I was going into this radio station and I was playing pop punk and new metal and
you
like
needed
sort
an
of
antidote.
and then I'd go home at 10 in the morning and I'd just go like, right, well, I've got loads of music to listen to, and I really got into that and Ready to Die by Electric Wizard, the Electric Wizard album that came out last year, that year, which is like, even by Electric Wizard standards, very, very difficult record to listen to.
Is,
and I loved it. I just was like, this is the shit that I love, because it was just such a lovely, antidote to what I was doing during the sort of working hours. I
think it's fair to say, though, just to pick up on what you were saying previous to that, Swans are basically the antithesis of how 99% of people listen to music now.
Yes, I think that's true. Like,
they're not throwaway. You have to like concentrate on it. You can't listen to it through a fucking phone or a laptop speakers, or like, turn all the lights out. Like that, you're not going to passively get into Swans. You have to work at it.
And I feel like, I mean, I actually heard Dan from Conjurer being interviewed, and he said it took him so long to get into Swans. And I've heard lots of things. I was actually watching something on the Needle Drop channel where somebody went, nothing happened. Someone tweeted him and said, everybody's waiting for something to happen in Swans music, and it never does. And that to me is like, well, it's just not, you're not in the right frame of mind and the right headspace.
I think the Swans music, characteristic of Swans music is it's enormously repetitive a lot of the time, but it's repetitive in a minimalism sense, in that there are subtle changes happening. But you need to sort of attune your ear to them, I suppose.
So I guess that's probably enough context. Got a favourite record? Do you have a favourite Swans record, Remfry?
No. I struggled. I've just struggled with them too much.
Fair enough. I mean, I would say To Be Kind is a good record that you should go and listen to. Love of Life from 1992. I actually have a little soft spot for that as well.
Okay.
I think it's really good. It feels like a bit of a weird one to pick, but anyway, that's how I feel. But which brings us on to Leaving Meaning, which came out last week, and we have deliberately left it a week because after all the heavy duty lifting that we had to do last week, I think adding this to the mix as well would have been difficult.
I wanted more time with it as well.
Yeah, I wanted more time. Yeah. And I have to be honest with you, I'm really, really glad that we gave ourselves an extra week with it.
As am I.
Because
my review last week would have been very different.
Yeah, I think it's definitely benefited me as a listener from having an extra sort of 8-9 listens to this record. Do you want to kick this one off, Remfry, or do you want me to start?
No, I'll kick this off. So everything that I've just said about Swans, not being able to get into them before, I'm really, really, really happy to say that finally I feel like this record has enough light in it for me to be able to step into the world and be like, okay, I get it a bit more now. The first couple of times I listened to it, well, probably the first time I listened to it, I still found a lot of it very oppressive and tough. The Hanging Man I really struggled with on initial listens. And Sunfucker, possibly the best title of the year.
Great song. What song?
Sun as in the
S-U-N.
The big ball in the sky. Not
Ian Watkins.
So pleased you said that. But I think there's a modicum of light at the end of the tunnel with this album. It's by Swans standards, it's a slighter album than normal. It's still 93 minutes long, but that makes it a little bit easier to get into, certainly than the last couple, I reckon. And it also just feels, lighter isn't the right word, but not as sonically oppressive. There are moments of sheer beauty on this record. I was really surprised. There's a 2-minute sort of opening track, and then what's the first track proper?
Annalie.
Annalie.
Annaline,
yeah. I was so surprised when Annaline came in, and there's just this, like, Michael Gira. He's just, he almost sounds quite frail. There's like it's actually quite a beautiful song, and beauty isn't something I'd normally associate with Swans.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is. I mean, this is why I said at the start, I feel like they're slightly mischaracterized because I don't think this is. I mean, I've read reviews of this going, it's a whole new direction for Swans, and I'm like, well, I'm not sure if it's an entirely whole new direction, because I think the idea of Swans is this dark, bleak, super loud, oppressive, like hate-filled thing. I don't actually think that they're always like that, but yeah, predominantly there's a hell of a lot of that. And, obviously they deserve that, but certainly I can understand why you would be a bit like, oh, when this record kicks off.
Yeah, it feels like there's more. Well, I guess all I'm saying, like, there is light in the other Swans records that I've heard. It's just that it feels like there's more in this one, and hence it made it easier for me to get inside it and enjoy it more. I think, the Hanging Man the Hanging Man's then the third track. It is far more kind of like the Swans that I'm used to hearing. And on first listen, I was like, oh, okay, here we go. Now we've got the repetitive chant-like droning dissonance, this shamanistic performance, and it's oddly uncomfortable and yet strangely alluring at the same time, which I think is how you can kind of sum up Swans. I mean, I'm almost tempted to like coin the term car crash music for stuff like that. I don't know if that's like the best term for it, but it's gross and yet you can't look away, kind of thing. And Swans do that really expertly. And The Hanging Man is a song, like, I can't think of a song this year that I started off disliking and then liking. The disparity between how much I disliked it the first time I heard it and how much I like it now, I think is the biggest for any song this year. I now think it's really good. It is enormously repetitive and, as I say, shamanistic, and it basically does the same thing for 10.5 minutes, more or less, with subtle changes. But there's something entrancing about it and hypnotic about it.
That's what it is for me. I think that they have this ability to suck you in. Yeah. And you just have to swirl around with them. And it is, sometimes it's quite a record that can make you feel kind of nauseous. I mean, you mentioned Sunfucker as which I think is an amazing, brilliant song. But at the end of it, you're looking at just under 11 minutes a song, which, isn't, as you mentioned, for Swans, is not a ridiculously long song for Swans by any stretch of the imagination. But when you're getting that kind of 3-minute long booming drums that just continue to kind of swirl and march, and you get Michael Gira just kind of, he doesn't even sing. I mean, I think this is the thing with Michael Gira, is that it's not even really singing. It's almost like kind of yarling, the kind of yeah. And there's so much of this record that reminds me of Gregorian chant. I mean, my mate, I was playing it at work, which is really ridiculous. And my mate, who likes sort of Five and Elton John and Robbie Williams, was like, "What's this fucking monk music you're listening to?" It's just chanty monk music. And obviously, he's not got a lot of context for what Swans are. Yeah. But I did go, I mean, it's kind of fair comment. There is something kind of medieval about ritualistic medieval, kind of shamanic is a great word, to the way that Swans, it's a bit like that bit in, it sounds the way that bit in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is filmed, Mularam, 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 Sularam, Mularam, 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 Shuftide. That bit, when and the camera's going everywhere and you're like, whoa. Obviously,
is your Halloween costume sorted?
Yeah, mate. Oh God, I've got to tell you what I'm going as for Halloween on Thursday. No, I was good because I'm going to when I put it up on. Okay. It's funny. Actually, it would have happened by now. I mean, Drew Barrymore in Scream. The best fucking costume. Casey Becker.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, just need a blonde wig and a cream top and jeans and a big phone and some blood. Done. Anyway, Swans. Yeah, so, obviously it's not as Hollywood as that. And again, we mentioned the film Irreversible a hell of a lot, but I think because the camera work on that is much more... I actually think this is, for Swans, a fairly easy listen.
Yes, for Swans.
For Swans,
yeah,
let's be clear about that. It's actually, I was surprised at how much of it I found...
really palatable.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are songs where... Sometimes there's whole songs where there isn't any dissonance or anything that's difficult at all. And yeah, I think this is the album that I kind of needed to get into Swans. I mean, I now feel like at some point I'll be ready to go back into the back catalogue and try other Swans records as well, because I now feel like I have this starting off point with Leaving Meaning. I mean, to talk about Sunfucker just a little bit more, it begins with that really dissonant, horrible sort of drum stuff, as you say, but then halfway through, it turns into an ass shaker of a song, like really like properly danceable, almost like devilish rock and roll.
Do you know what? I think there's that point in the album. There's a marked shift for a few tracks.
I agree.
There's a marked shift,
which is the halfway point.
Which is the halfway
point where you would change disc.
Yeah. So Sunfucker actually on the vinyl closes that disc, and then you would put in Cathedrals of Heaven.
Yeah.
The nub, It's Coming, It's Real. I mean, the Cathedrals of Heaven is great, but the nub is 12 minutes long. It's got somebody called Baby D, not Let You Be a Fancy Baby D. It is Baby D, who was a vocalist from the sort of late 60s and early 70s, a kind of sort of female pop star, so I believe. I've never heard of her before, I have to fess up.
Okay.
But I just had a quick look at who she was quickly. And the nub has 3 minutes, which again, in Swans terms, is literally fuck all, where it just kind of builds with that little piano part. It's really fucking cool. And then she comes in and it just feels like, I don't know, like you say, a sort of a psychedelic 60s freak out. And there's also bits on this record around that period, like It's Coming, It's Real, which I think is amazing song.
I agree.
That is amazing. That might be the best song on the record, and that might be, if you're going to listen to Swans and go, give me a song to listen to, that might be a song that you could go, you should listen to this, and then it's probably not going to. If that's too much, maybe don't bother with anything else.
I think It's Coming, It's Real is one of the songs where there isn't any dissonance and you can kind of listen to it. I mean, I think it was released as a single.
It was released as, it was the first song released, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's it has those kind of female oohs in the background, which is basically the basis of the song. And then
it again, I mentioned with Nick Cave, I mentioned David Lynch.
Yeah.
And it's got a kind of cowboy Lynchian vibe to it, I think, that song.
Yeah.
It's really kind of lackadaisical and hip swingy, and it's got a kind of, maybe not cowboy actually, maybe kind of more like gangster noir. Do you know what I mean? It's got like a real just, it's cool fucking music. Do you know what I mean? It's
cool
like
fucking music.
It's like when the cool guy from the film walks into shot.
Yeah.
Like the detective, the gangster, the cowboy, whoever. When that guy walks in, this is the kind of music that he struts along to. And again, not strictly something that you would associate with a band like Swans to do kind of...
Not at all.
But this is I think this is a very, at points, this is quite a cinematic and soundtracky sounding record.
Yeah.
Morricone, Sergio Leone, there are bits in that where I was like, oh, this is a kind of spaghetti western twang to some of this stuff.
Yeah, there's like glockenspiels used on it quite a bit, like on the title track. And title track might be my favourite, actually.
Really, yeah, that is good.
Which is like, it has these sort of waves of piano that come in and out of it, and then Guy Jira's intoning this thing about, I cannot see it, I cannot feel it, but not, I can feel it but not keep it, I can touch it but not hold it. I can be it but not know it. We never know what it is, but it's sort of beguiling the whole time, and just builds into this. I mean, again, like 11-minute. I mean, it's just a brilliant song, and 11 minutes just seems to go incredibly quickly. I mean, there's some people who listen to it and think that it's the longest 11 minutes of their life, probably, but I'm finding this record. It feels shorter with every listen, and it feels like easier to get into, and it's that thing that we've talked about quite a lot recently with like albums that just hypnotize you, you know. And it's not going to hypnotize everyone, but like it just does become becomes a very hypnotic 93 minutes. And you know, I don't think it's perfect at all, but for the most part, it's really nice to. There's this band who everyone has been wanging on about, who I feel like I should be into. For years and years and years, for almost 10 years, I've tried to get into them. And now finally, I feel like this is my way in to get into them. And it's the first Swans record that I feel like I've appreciated everything that Swans have done, but I've never really liked anything that Swans have done up until now, which is quite nice.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm feeling a bit like I'm going to start to sound like a broken record with what I've been saying over the last few weeks, because we had Nick Cave a couple of weeks ago, which I think is just fantastic record. Yeah. Obviously last week I went bananas for the Clipping record. I like Swans, right? I like Swans, and I have to kind of huff myself up to listen to them usually, but I do like them, and I do get something. The early stuff that I was talking about earlier, you know, I would very, very rarely sort of put that, the kind of pre-Jarbo stuff, I would very, very rarely put that on, if I'm being completely honest. But post
you're
that,
Mr. Sadist.
Yeah. But post that, I really do like most of the things of theirs that I've heard, and particularly, as I said, since they've come back in 2010, I think they've been very, very consistent. I think this might be my favourite thing they've done.
Oh, that's interesting. That's
and I think the reason for it is that this is a record which it still scratches that itch that Swans give you of being unnerving and hypnotizing and swirling. But it's actually, for me, for Swans, I feel like this is an enjoyable record to listen to. Yeah, fuck it, an enjoyable record to listen to.
In the context of the music.
I want to listen to, you know, it's not like, you know, when you want to listen to something, you will listen to it. And like I say, I don't think that a lot of this stuff that they've done is completely brand new and it never existed before. No. Like, it's definitely not. They've definitely had moments of subtlety and, you know, like deep subtlety and, you know, kind of calmness in their music before, and quiet, but they're not as tonally consistent as they are on this record. And I love the fact that this record feels pretty tonally consistent throughout, that you can put it on and you can listen to the whole thing and it goes by really, really quickly. Pretty much all of the songs are really good on it, and they give you something. It's a different experience of listening to Swans.
Yeah.
I really, and the more I listen to this record, the more and more I like it.
Yeah.
To the point where at this point I'm like, I fucking love it.
Yeah.
I think it's really great.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I think it's really, really good, and I'm just relieved that finally, as I say, I've finally found a way in. And you know, if you're like me and you have struggled with, I mean, this is a good entry point, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
15 albums in, you know, but I felt like cheated is way too strong, but the manner in which people were going on about the Seer and To Be Kind. And I just felt like there was no doorway in. I just felt completely lost with them. And that's not the case with this. And now that I have this and I've kind of, you know, this is permeated around my skull, I feel like maybe in another year or two I can approach the Seer again, or
I think,
To Be Kind again or something.
They've become better songwriters as well.
Right.
Like,
right.
Do you know what I mean? You know, like, again, to sort of, if you were to go back and listen to Cop, or do you know what I mean? To listen to even a lot, you know, they're kind of early 90s stuff, right? I think there are ideas and songwriting ideas on this that they probably wouldn't have been capable of back then. It's a fucking great record. This is really, really good.
Yeah.
And it is rare to get 15 albums down the line and to be like, you know, here's something which is, it's what, you know, what I was saying about Refuse last week, you know, this the ability to kind of grow old gracefully and go, well, you know, it would, I very much doubt they could make Cop again. Do you know what I mean? And they haven't tried to, but they found another way of harnessing a similar levels of power and similar levels of menace and threat. And they haven't lost, like, this still sounds like a Swans record.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You could probably play stuff from this record back to back with, you know, the just before they split up in the 90s, some of that, you know, that era stuff. And you'd go, yeah, I could definitely see it's the same band. Definitely.
Yep, definitely.
You might struggle if you were going to go right back to the 80s stuff and go like, oh, this is the same band. You'd probably go like, oh, they've changed, haven't they? But definitely, you know, I think there's a through line.
It's a natural progression.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
This is very, very good, this record. Like, very good. Just so we're clear. Very good. I'm not going to say where it's going to be in my...
but you're saying it's going to be in there, aren't you?
Well, no, I'm not saying that it's going to be in there. Probably will be. But, yeah. But I'd be pretty surprised if it wasn't, to be honest. But anyway, there you go. Swans. Renfrew, you got a Swans album you like?
Yay.
I just assumed you would be a massive fan, to be honest.
I think this is part of my frustration with not being into them. People assume that I will be because I like avant-garde, long, weird music.
You do.
And Swans tick all of those boxes, but they are just so...
They're dense.
They're so dense and so oppressive that I've just never, as I say, I just never found the route in. But this is my route in, and it's exciting now. I go, oh, brilliant! Now I might be able to check out some of their other records and get into those as well.
Yeah. So there you go. Leaving Meaning by Swans is out right now, and if you have ever thought, I want to listen to that band Swans because everyone bangs on about them, but I'm struggling, then you know
this is the one.
This is the one to go with, I would say.